Hey everyone, Sean Deveney here from Heavy Sports. I've got the very surprised Steve Bulpett with me here. How are you, Steve?
I'm fine, Sean. How are you?
Good, good. Steve is our NBA insider. We're here to talk a little NBA. We're going to focus to start with at least on the Nets. No surprise there, Steve. You've been on top of this story. What's going on with Kevin Durant? What's going on with Joe Tsai and the Brooklyn Nets? The two sides do not seem to be getting along particularly well at this point. What happens next with this scenario? With this whole scenario, where do you think that all this is heading?
Well, from everything I'm able to gather, it's a case now where if the Nets want to move Kevin Durant, they're going to have to either come down on what their asking price is, which is the price is exorbitant, or they're going to have to get really creative and get a third and maybe a fourth team involved to make a trade work. So either that or else they just sit tight and bring Kevin Durant into camp, hope he shows up, and see what he and Kyrie and a presumably healthier Ben Simmons can do together. They'd be obviously also bringing back Joe Harris, a very important floor spacer for that group. So, I think those are really their only two, I guess three options. Lower your price, find another team to bring into it to make a trade work, or bring them back and hope that things worked out there. Because that their shortest route to being a good basketball team in 2022, 2023 is for Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Seth Curry, Ben Simmons, and Joe Harris to be on the floor together.
Yeah, that's the only thing preventing that right now is personalities and egos and some of those clashes. Other than that, it seems like all systems are go.
It's just Mr. Lincoln. How did you enjoy the play?
Yes, exactly right. There's a little bit of that going on, and you know what one thing that always surprises me in these situations is that a player who comes out and wants to be traded, and it becomes known that he wants to be traded, will find ways to make it increasingly difficult for the team to actually trade him. The more tension, the more loggerheads that there are, the harder it is to trade. Because look, other GMs read the paper, they know what's going on. If what you want to do is be traded, then a vow of silence is usually a pretty good MO. It just seems like Kevin Durant, with all the stuff that's happened now, has made it more difficult for the Nets to actually pull off a trade.
Yeah, but true. Look, in our latest story, I've got coaches and GMs talking about just how upset they are with Durant. They're upset for their peers. Basically, with Durant giving an ultimatum like, I'll be here, but if I'm here in Brooklyn, Steve Nash and Sean Marks can't be here. That really ticked off a lot of people. Having said that, and I talked to one GM directly, I said, but, would you still take them? And it's like, yeah, they would. So, it's still, talent still runs the league. And as much as they can be unhappy with a guy like that for his actions, he'd be quickly forgiven if he's on the floor in your uniform, challenging 30 points most every night. That's, like I said, allowances are made for talent. Always has been the case, always will be the case. They get a longer rope.
Yeah, I mean, you're right that when you look at it in the end, Ben Simmons did get traded. No matter how he acted, no matter how hard he made it on the Sixers, he did get traded. Anthony Davis got traded from the Pelicans. No matter how dramatic and how silly and how petty everything was between those two sides at one point, eventually the deals got done.
James Harden got traded twice.
Yeah, that's right.
it's just weird. It's like, once a guy starts, once a guy does that, what comes next? I mean, who's to say that the next time it gets easier? I mean, really, well, yeah, I mean, Durant has walked himself out of places twice, right, as a free agent. So, it's the way it works. And you have to play that game, I guess.
Now, let me ask you about the other main player in Brooklyn, and that, of course, is Kyrie Irving, who a month and a half ago looked like he was destined to be out of Brooklyn by hook or by crook. That he would have even, according to some reports, that he would have taken the mid-level exception from the Lakers just to leave Brooklyn and leave about $25 million on the table in doing so. That, of course, changed, and now there's been reports that, okay, Kyrie's happy to be in Brooklyn, and he's going to play out this year with a smile on his face, and everything will be grand. But if they trade Kevin Durant, is there much point in keeping Kyrie Irving around? You'll be able to perhaps rebuild around Ben Simmons, who's 25, 26 years old, and does it make sense then to have 32-year-old Kyrie Irving on the last year of his contract? Shouldn't you try to get something for him? So Kevin Durant gets traded. Let's just suppose that happens. Do the Nets then turn around and say, we've got to do something with Kyrie as well?
Well, what can you get for Kyrie Irving? That's the question. Look, I think the Nets would love to be out of that situation, but they don't want to give him up for nothing. And what's his true value? It would appear that what you could get in return, from everything I'm gathering, talking to teams, what you can get in a return for Kyrie Irving does not nearly match his talent. But then again, how often is his talent on the court? Last year he found a couple different ways to miss games. The vaccination issue, just he needed a break. All these things come into play. You're always going to deal with that with Kyrie. I'm not sure he's ever going to be any place happy, comfortable, peaceful for a long period of time. So, like when the Nets went for the Kyrie, Kevin Durant package, it was like, okay, we'll grab this lightning, put it in a bottle, and see if it glows really, really bright. They had to wait a year for Durant, and it never really worked out for them. Okay, you can see how close they came with Durant and his toe on the three-point line. But when you're dealing with Kyrie, you're always going to be looking at your phone, wondering if it's going to ring with something strange.
Yeah, and they would still have the problem of what do you do with him next summer? You whatever the issue was this year, you're going to just transfer it to next year. Do you pay him? Do you not pay him? How much do you pay him? How much will he take? It's not going to be anybody else who's going to be able to pay him. It's not like there's going to be a ton of cap space on the market next year either. So you're going to be right back in the same position. So you're right. I think when you say you're not going to get anything back close to what he's worth, but at this point, if you're the Nets, aren't you just trying to get something?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, but again, you have to. The Durant thing is kind of the linchpin there, because if he's still around, then yeah, Kyrie, you want to keep him. If he's not there, then presumably you get a few draft picks on it. The weird part is that the Nets, in terms of if they want to just break it apart and rebuild, well, they're not even going to be able to get the benefit of their own stinkiness, right? Because those draft picks are gone. Those draft picks are in Houston for James Harden, who you no longer have.
Yeah, I feel like they've been there before. If you're the Nets, you've been there. You've done this before.
So I mean, they're that's in kind of an endangered species, a first-round pick in Brooklyn, New York, ever since 2013 when they sent a bunch to the Celtics.
Should Kyrie Irving be traded? Of course, the first team on the list would probably be the Lakers. They did have discussions about him before. But I want to talk about something different with the Lakers, and that is Chris Haynes of Yahoo reporting that Darvin Ham's intention is to run the offense through Anthony Davis, which I think a lot of coaches, I think Frank Vogel would have liked to have done that. I think Alvin Gentry would have liked to have done that in New Orleans. The problem is the guy's not on the floor. That he missed basically half the Lakers games the last 2 years. It's hard to run your offense through a guy who's not there. So I guess the question is this a good strategy, given the injury history? Is this something that you can really count on? The Lakers, when they made the trade for Anthony Davis, were saying that he's going to be the successor to LeBron James. He's going to keep them as a championship contender beyond that. I don't know that you can still say that about Anthony Davis and the Lakers.
Well, to give you an idea, to give people out there an idea of how difficult it can be to run your offense through Anthony Davis, in Staples Center, you exit the floor in the tunnelway diagonally from the Lakers bench, and then you get to a hallway and you take a right there, and then you take an immediate left into the Laker locker room. And then right off that hallway into the Laker locker room, there's a coach's office on the left. And then you take a sharp right there, and there is the trainer's room. So you have to get the ball from that trainer's room to a guy that's cutting on the floor. And again, you see the turns it's got to take. There's no real direct route through the stands there unless you can, make the ball,
You really got to work on some geometry to get it off the wall.
Anti-matter situations. But it's going to be tough to run the offense that way. And, as someone in New Orleans told me back when the Celtics were in the hunt heavily for Anthony Davis, is, that they first of all told me that you better make sure that Marcus Smart is not included in that deal because you're going to need someone tough to stand next to Anthony Davis. Number two, this guy told me he had never, ever seen a player take that many trips to the trainer's room. Now, we're not talking about a serious injury and a guy being stupid and trying to fight his way and making himself even more injured, more hurt. But just the people will tell you that he goes to the trainer's room for the slightest issue. A hangnail, that can be a major problem.
Yeah, no, he's had a long history of 2-3 games at a time missed. I think the thing that concerns you with the Lakers is that he's had for these last 2 years a couple of real injuries, and maybe the timeline for his return has been slower than it would be for other guys. But if you start talking about injuries that would keep other guys out, now you just have to wonder if the guy's fragile.
Yeah, and again, in terms of what his talent is, yeah, that's a great idea. But if you could guarantee that you would have Anthony Davis and LeBron James, we'll just start with those two on the floor together for 70-something games this year, then the Lakers probably would not be as bad as certainly wouldn't be as bad as they were last year. And that's with maneuvering pieces around them even. But just right there would be a step forward for that team before you even begin to deal with the side players that you need to support them.
Yeah, even with the cast of characters that they have right now, which isn't exactly striking fear in the rest of the league, Juan Toscano-Anderson and Troy Brown Jr., Damian Jones, Thomas Bryant, the guys that they brought in. But if you've got AD and LeBron James healthy, even with those guys, it's still going to be a pretty good team. It's still probably going to be a team that can finish maybe top 6 in the West and not be in the play-in. But it's just the health the last 2 years just hasn't been there. Not just for AD, but also for LeBron. You're just not going to win without both of those guys on the floor in 100%.
I totally agree. look, I think Darvin Ham will do a very good job, but it's going to be, it's all going to be a relative issue. He's going to do the best with what he has, but what does he have?
Right. Well, thanks a lot, Steve. Appreciate talking NBA with you as always. Check out heavy.com sports for more on the NBA. We've got stuff on all your favorite teams every day.